just in the garage doing a few jobs on the car because we're about 2 weeks away from doing our annual Europe trip with a group of friends that we've been doing since 2010. So this year we're going to the Alps and we're doing Switzerland, Italy, France, places like that. Basically just to drive some great roads. So we've been doing this trip, as I said, since 2010, and in that time we've done the NC 500, Nürburgring plenty of times, we've done Pyrenees, we've done Germany, Spain, basically kind of going all over really. So last year we did Pyrenees and I had an Ultima GTR, which unfortunately I sold at the end of last year just to fund a new business I started. So at the moment this is really the only toy I've got. Now, it's really a racing car, which I also race in the 750 Motor Club Championship. Currently in sports specials. I've been doing low cost championship for the last 4 years, and hopefully next year we're going to have a new series for a standalone grid for these kind of cars, which is basically a low cost with a Mazda MX-5 engine, but I'm going to make it road spec for the trip, which means putting headlights on. I've put some indicators and some rear lights on, which I'll get wired up properly soon. We're going to have to raise the ride height slightly, probably stiffen the suspension up a bit, because me and George, who's driving the MK Indy on the trip with us, went out for a little shakedown last weekend, and unfortunately, because the sump on my car sits so low, I hit a bump on a road and basically smashed the sump open. So the sump now looks like that. All the oil came out of it, which caused the engine to seize. So that engine is dead. Luckily we used the 1800 MX-5 VVT engine, which is really cheap and there's loads of them about. So yesterday I went and picked up a new engine. I think I paid 150 quid for it, and it's done 55,000 miles. So it's a pretty low mileage one considering. So on Friday I'm going to take the car back to SRB Racing in Lincolnshire for Richard, Bradley and Josh to fit the new engine, and I'll try and help them and just try not to get in the way. And while we're there we're also going to fit another diff, because the diff's been whining and making horrible noises. So we'll put a new diff in, put a new engine in, give it a kind of check all over, and then we're racing at Oulton Park, and then 5 days after the Oulton Park we go to the Alps. So hopefully there's nothing happens at Oulton. It's a uneventful race, but I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously there's not much in the way of creature comforts in here, no stereo, and I suppose air conditioning because you're sitting in the air, and that's about it really. I've got a side protection bar here which we'll try and fit on, which goes across there. It'll just give me a bit more safety because there's a big old space there if anyone crashes into me. So I'll try and make it as safe as possible, but I'm really looking forward to it. It won't be anywhere near as quick as the Ultima was. But it should handle well and should be good fun on all those alpine roads. So the next video I'll make is when we're at SRB Racing swapping the engine. So I brought the car to Richard and Josh at SRB Racing in Lincolnshire, and we've just stripped the engine out of it. Start to strip all the bits off the new engine. Richard's just in the middle of doing the diff, and so that's the new one, that's the old one.
Rooftop view in London,
So I got the car back from Richards, new engines in, it seemed to run alright. I had a little test run at Richards, then I gave it a little test run at home. But then we needed to sort this sump issue out, so I sent away my sump to a welder that I know. Shout out to Tim Peniston Smith, and he's cut the sump and made it shorter for me, so it shouldn't be hitting on the ground as much. So I fitted the sump to it the other day, and I started it and oil just started pissing out of it, and basically there's two little seals that sit in the sump that hadn't gone back in. So I've now got the sump off again, and I shall be fitting that soon. But I'm now just going to do a quick rundown of all the jobs that I'm going to do before we go, because it's Oulton Park in a few days, and then after Oulton Park we go. So first things first, I need to sort myself out a little bit. Hair's getting a bit long, so I need to get a haircut. A bit better. So, next job is sump. So, this is the sump that I've had cut. So it's a lot less deep than an original one, and that needs to go on there. So let's have a look. So sump is done. There we go. But it's all looking a bit bare here. So for aero, I'm going to do a flat floor. So let's try that. So there we go. I've done panel there, sump guard there, panel at the front. So that should smooth the air out a little bit. So, next job is, got to sort out this sidebar. So, let's try and figure that out. There we go. So, that should be a bit safer, just in case anything hits me here. Yeah, that's good. So, I think I'm pretty much ready for Oulton Park now. Just going to check over all the bolts and things, make sure everything's tight. Just put my other set of wheels on and load the trailer up tonight and go down tomorrow. Good to go. So it's been a while since I've raced Oulton Park, so I'm just using project cars on the PlayStation just to re-familiarise myself with the layout of it. I'm not going to be able to do the test day before the race weekend, so this is the next best thing. But obviously nothing beats being there for real. We've just had race one, which I won, which is nice. We've got another race coming up later on, starting second in class on the grid. I just thought I'd show you around the awning. So these are all the cars that run under my team. So I've just finished racing at Oulton Park. It was a pretty good weekend overall. Came away with a first and a second, so can't really say fairer than that. So unfortunately in race 2 my alternator broke, so I'm going to have to go home, try and fix the alternator, and then in a few days it's Alps. So really pleased that it's all still in one piece. Obviously it was a bit risky racing a week before we go, but yeah, I'm pleased for that. Welcome to what's been pretty much the weirdest and most stressful few days of my life. So at the end of Oulton Park, the alternator broke in the last race, so I went and bought a new alternator and fitted it myself, which I thought was quite an achievement since I don't really have many mechanical skills. Seemed to be alright, but I had to swap a pulley from my old alternator to the new one because the new one was wrong. Then I took it for a quick drive. The alternator belt popped off because the pulley was in the wrong place. The car overheated, it was boiling itself. So, and there were no front brakes. So for the last, all day, it's now midnight, all day I've been bleeding the brakes, put new brake fluid in, I have taken the alternator off again and shimmed the pulley out, so now the belts all line up. So this is the alternator in here. This pulley wasn't lining up with these pulleys, so this belt was jumping off, which is quite an important belt. So I've done that, I've done the brakes, I've filled the cooling system up. I think there was a block in the overflow pipe which was making it boil itself. And I think it might all be working now, but it's a bit too late to actually go out, obviously. I started it up, but I don't want to annoy the neighbours too much. Seems to run okay. So tomorrow I set off, so I've got until lunchtime. But in the space of the week as well, I ended up in A&E because I slipped with a Stanley knife while I was cutting some fuel cable because I've put an extra fuel tank in. So now there's 1, 2. The first one had about 11 litre capacity. That bad boy's got about 30, so now I've got a decent capacity. So I slipped with a Stanley knife, ended up in A&E, yeah, not very good. And then I went to pick up some contact lenses today for the trip, and they had a look at my eyes while I was in there, and it turns out I've got a piece of metal embedded in this eye. And so tomorrow I've got to go to the eye hospital to have a procedure where they're going to dig it out, because she tried to get it out under anaesthetic and it didn't work. So yeah, it's been a pretty stressful week. I didn't think I was going to be ready, and I still might not be, so I'm going to get some good breakdown cover. That will be very, very important. And yeah, let's see what happens. So why am I not just living for today?